Hello and welcome to warrenthornton.com. Welcome to the show. If you like what we do, come and see us over at warrenthornton.com or the Patreon. On Patreon, you can get us The Real Truth 502 or type in Warren Thornton and it will take you to our page. There's lots of articles and the extra part of the show and the subscriber show is on there as well, which is very, very reasonably priced. And of course, you have access to all the things that we do that we can't show on mainstream media because obviously we get shut down. Welcome to the show, absolutely everybody who's out there. We are going to get into some bits and pieces that have happened, and we are getting literally the first report, of course, that there has been a phone call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. CBS News are reporting that that's happened. And of course, this has been going on, as we've said. We thought and we spoke to somebody who said this was going on and that the Americans for the last 24 hours have been desperately trying to get hold of literally Vladimir Putin on the phone so that they can have a chat before the meeting with Zelensky. So we're going to tell you exactly what has gone on here. Now, our sources on the Hill and our sources quite close to Peskov. So what we have are two bits of, shall we say, the same coin would be the best way of saying it. So we're going to tell you exactly what the Americans are saying, what the Americans want, and what the Russians are saying back. Now, the Americans want something from Vladimir Putin that they can take and give to Zelensky. And they have turned around and basically said, that their hands are tied and that if the war hawks and everything else, if they can't get some movement here, then obviously they have to help Ukraine where they possibly can. Now, that obviously can mean tomahawks and everything else. So we've got some brinkmanship going on here. Give me something to take to Zelensky. Now, the Russian side of this, from somebody who's very, very close to Peskov, is that they are getting absolutely nothing from the Russians whatsoever. And in fact, there are discussions going on amongst the Russians about whether to break all diplomatic ties with Trump. Now, Putin doesn't really want to do this, but he is becoming more and more exasperated. I mean, obviously, we'll find out what happens over the next 24 hours. And don't miss tomorrow night's show because we will be right on it. Tomorrow night's show, we're going to be covering absolutely everything that you need to know from the Ukraine-Russia war, from its conception, from the start of the invasion, from the start of 2014, right the way through to the present time. So you're fully informed on all the stuff that you are never told by the Western media. Eric Jones had his hand up. Eric.
Everybody thought it was great on the Trump side, the people who support him, as far as he's a businessman. You know, this is the art of the deal. Well, I hate to break it to him, but China and Russia do not care about businessmen deals. They're dealing with people, and they're not playing that game. So, no, quite frankly.
Well, you see, the thing is, Trump has actually turned around and said to Zelensky that he didn't have any cards. Well, he's actually gone and done that. He's actually given him some cards, or he's giving him cards, as we say. But very, very simply, Putin is holding all the cards in this conflict. They are not worried in the slightest about Tomahawk missiles. Now, this could possibly embolden people. And of course, they've been preparing the groundwork for both things, whether or not they can get something from whether they can get anything from Putin or not. So how can I put this? Hegseth has finally started coming out and saying the things that we all know that they are going to do. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
That's all that matters, hard power. It's the only thing belligerents actually respect. Your continued investment and leadership are vital to helping Ukraine defend itself and to bring an end to this conflict. Peace through strength. Now, Europe's political leaders have also endorsed military planning for the coalition of the willing by establishing an operational headquarters and committing personnel to that multinational force. Should a peace arrangement be reached, European leaders are sending a clear message to Russia. Now is the time to end this tragic war, stop the needless bloodshed, and come to the peace table. Now, if this war does not end, if there is no path to peace in the short term, then the United States, along with our allies, will take the steps necessary to impose costs on Russia for its continued aggression. If we must take this step, the U.S. War Department stands ready to do our part in ways that only the United States can do. We remain clear-eyed about the fact that the most effective deterrents to Russian aggression are, number one, a lethal, capable, and European-led NATO, and number two, a combat-credible Ukrainian military able to defend itself and thereby continue to deter Russian aggression along NATO's border. Again, peace through strength. Under President Trump's steadfast leadership, and in particular with our European allies, we're going to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. The war must end. Like we saw him do in Gaza and in the Middle East, President Trump knows how to forge peace, to create opportunities in situations, in scenarios where peace seems far off. He and he alone has the ability to do that. This is not a war that started on President Trump's watch, but it will end on his watch. So let us seize this moment, strongly forge peace in Ukraine, and let's bring peace through strength. Thank you very much.
There we are. So peace through strength from Pete Hegseth. Now, let's be absolutely clear here. Trump, this is now Trump's war. Okay, once you arm Ukraine, which you've already done, it's your war. You cannot duck out of it. He didn't start the war, quite correct. Didn't finish it either in 2016. Now, they are playing brinkmanship right up to the edge here, which is well out of order and well, shall we say, naughty, shall we say. So this is once again trying to pressure the Russians left, right, and centre. And they're saying peace through strength. Peace through strength means do as we tell you. Otherwise, will cause a problem for you. Sean Murphy wants to have a word. Sean?
Well, they're playing brinkmanship with other people's lives, aren't they?
They are.
Let's face it. That's the basic part of it. They're playing brinkmanship with other people's lives. It doesn't affect them. It's not going to affect them, but it will affect millions or hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians, and they don't care.
No. And this is the problem that we have. Thank you very much for those points. Very, very simply, what they're hoping is that Putin will carry on like this. Now, if Putin doesn't do anything, if he doesn't give them any concessions, Zelensky goes along and talks once again the nonsense that he talks. Now, my understanding of this is that Zelensky once again is going to ask for tomahawks, and of course that literally the Americans are then going to dangle the carrot by turning around and saying there is a possibility of having these, but we have to sort out a delivery date, and there's lots of things to sort out. But the basic understanding is that yes, you can have tomahawks, but let's be absolutely clear here. Without the Americans to launch them, they cannot hit anywhere. And there is a long way to go yet with this. Now, what is more likely to happen is Zelensky is going to turn up. Trump is going to tell him that he's got a huge arms shipment coming. The only trouble is we know exactly where it's going to come through. Now, the problem that we have here, of course, is Zelensky wants the what he calls the game changers, but they've never been game changers. Every single weapon is always a game changer. If you remember, the Challenger tanks were a game changer. The F-16s were a game changer. Everything was going to change. Not supplying none of these missiles whatsoever is going to change this war in any way, shape, or form. The Ukrainians have lost, and we're going to show you why in a minute. Nilis.
Yeah, I had an interesting point of view yesterday, and they're saying one of the reasons Trump wants Venezuela is because there is a war, he wants a good supply and local supply of oil. He doesn't want his oil coming from the Middle East, which it would be an extended supply line. And apparently, during the Second World War, most of America's oil did come from Venezuela. So that's he might be doing all this with Venezuela, just preparing for war, for the American war. And as we know, that lady who got the Nobel Peace Prize, she had an interview with Eric Trump, and she said, "I'm going to give America all Venezuelan oil."
Basically. Yes, all of it. Yeah, every single bit. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Nilis. Louis Bastos.
Very good morning. If Trump starts, China and North Korea will join Russia. So
if NATO joined the war,
well, Trump is NATO.
Yeah, very, very simply, but they've got to put boots on the ground to do that. Now, we had a discussion with some people today when it comes to this. And of course, once again, NATO are not going to put their own troops on the ground. They're trying to talk the Moldovans into it. There's various, should we say, sections. They're going to carry out all sorts of terror attacks on various Russian installations to try and bring about Putin to the peace table. It's not going to make a blind bit of difference. And there's a good reason for that. So already there has been meetings at MI6 and within the military, both the Pentagon and the UK and the French forces have said that they are not prepared to put boots on the ground. The next escalation is to give them Tomahawk missiles and a large package and more funding. And the whole idea is to stretch this war out for as long as possible. But they have a real problem in terms of manpower. Manpower is where the problem is. And of course, the Russians don't care about the land. Empty fields don't shoot back. And as long as the Ukrainians are willing to keep throwing people onto the front line, the Russians are happy to keep killing them. Let me be absolutely clear about that. When I spoke to our Russian source today, he turned around and said, if it takes 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we are denazifying. And this is where people have not got hold of this at all. Very, very simply, as far as the Russians are concerned, there is a neo-Nazi or nationalist element, whichever you want to call it, that are driving this war on behalf of America. And America began this war by overthrowing the democratically elected government of Ukraine in 2014. Then these lunatics went on a killing spree in the eastern Donbass, on the eastern side of Ukraine, killing close up to 14,000 people. Now, people say it's 14,000 children. It wasn't. It was close on 2,000 children. But of course, there is a place called the Alley of the Angels in the Donbass. Go and have a look. Now, these children were being bombed with cluster bombs way back in 2014-15. Let's go and have a look. You won't hear about this in the West because, of course, nobody wants you to know about it. But go and check out an atrocity called Zagres Beach in 2015. Robert, then Nilis. Robert.
Sorry, I wasn't finished. The
Robert
threat
first.
of...
Yes, Robert.
Is there someone else?
That's all right, Robert.
The threat of America giving the Tomahawks could be easily countered and should be, in my reckoning, for Russia to give not only Venezuela, but also Cuba, very obvious large rockets.
Yes.
Not necessarily Oreshniks, but big ones that could seriously hit Washington. And
Yes,
then
well,
that would cause most American, instead of bringing in patriots to join up and fight, I think it would deter an awful lot of chaps already thinking of resigning.
yeah. Well, let's have a little look about, because you make a very valid point. Same point Vladimir Putin was making.
What don't you understand? Are we putting missiles near the borders of the United States? No. It's the United States with their missiles coming to our home. They're literally on our doorstep. Is this really too much to ask? No more strike systems on our doorstep. What's so unusual about that? How would American people feel if we put our missiles on the Canada-US border, for example? Or if we put our missiles on the Mexico-US border? As though Mexico and the US never had any territorial issues. California used to belong to whom? And Texas? Have you forgotten? Oh, right, it's quiet now. Nobody brings it up.
Nilus.
Well, you were talking about nationalist forces being the same as Nazi forces. And I like to point out that the Nazis an whole occult ideology, which many of the Ukrainian Nazis support wholeheartedly in their worship of the Nordic gods and other things. You can see this especially when they're taking over churches and they're supporting their own gods. It's also got to point out that both the CIA, the MI6, and also Mossad are very active in Ukraine.
Yes, we're getting off the subject a bit. Yeah, keep going.
But as Colonel McGregor, has often stated, and I think there is a big difference between nationalist forces and Nazi forces. And you were saying you were trying to saying that they're very similar, but they're not.
No, I'm saying that's what no, I didn't say they were similar at all, Nilus. What I said was, I turned around. If you wind the tape back afterwards, you'll see neo-Nazis or nationalists, whatever you like to call them. I don't think they're similar at all.
All right, because neo-Nazis have an occult agenda, let's say.
Yes, they do. But we're getting deeper and darker down a rabbit hole there. But yes, you are right. You are right on that. Louis Bastos.
It's like
Louis?
Trump is not getting all the true facts of what's happening in Ukraine. That's the biggest problem about it.
I don't think
that's the biggest problem.
I think you're absolutely right. And if they are listening, if any of those people are listening to the show who have the year of Donald Trump, if he's not getting the facts, if he's getting the facts, then that's even crazier. But here's the thing: he's got Vice, he's got Rubio, he's got Hegseth, he's got surrounded by all these people, Kellogg, who are all war hawks, who all want this war to continue. America want this war to continue. They just don't want to fight it. They're happy to give them the weapons. Now that NATO are going to give them money, they've got even more reason to keep this fight going. And to think very, very simply that they're going to CIA, Mossad, they're in and out of their meetings. The Mossad agents, they walk in and out of the Pentagon meetings all day long. All day long. Anybody that thinks that they don't do that is seriously delusional. I am telling you now from our own Pentagon sources, they have sat there during the Israel-Iran conflict over that 12 days, and they were constantly in and out, not being invited to meetings, walking into meetings. And of course, the CIA don't even, and the Pentagon people don't even meet Israel in the Pentagon anymore because the Israelis keep trying to bug it. That's how bad it is. That's how much sort of hold and sway they have there. You don't have to believe me, and that's absolutely fine. But I'm telling you, that's the way it is. So anybody, as Nilus was saying there, and many others were saying, CIA, Mossad, they're all together. Yes, they are. If the CIA, the MI6 and Mossad, they share intelligence all the time. No question whatsoever. So what you have at the moment is America. Getting back to what we were saying, we've got America trying to get a concession from Putin. And as you heard Hexes say, we're ready to go to war. Well, they're not. That's the problem. When you're holding a pair of twos, don't go bluffing the Russian and Chinese, because they will call it. And Putin is going to, and it is this prediction of this channel that Putin is going to call that bluff. And they are going to get absolutely nothing from Putin over the next 24 hours. What they will get is Putin being absolutely solid about the reasons for the SMO. And when people turn around and say, oh, but he's not taking land, he doesn't have to. The Ukrainians are coming to him, not necessarily the neo-Nazis that, of course, are staying on the border and throwing the troops in, but they've already had to put Azov troops in around Dobrovolya. So we're going to go through some of that stuff that's going on in a minute. But first of all, we're just going to give you an overall précis of what is going to happen here. So if they say yes to Tomahawks, which is unlikely, I'm still telling you that it's unlikely. They don't want to give them, but if they don't get a concession from Putin, they're going to start making more noises about giving them and set a date at a future time to bring them in. The Russians are not concerned with this at all, apart from the fact that it then escalates, because after that, all you've got left is the JASSMs, and then and the Oresniks to counterbalance that. Of course, Russia have sent a message back to saying that they will hit NATO commands inside of Ukraine. Okay, we're telling you this right now. They will hit NATO commands inside of Ukraine. The Russians have already sent that message through a back channel. So it is now up to America what they decide to do. And of course, people always talk about how, that Putin is too soft and this, that, and the other. Putin is at the limit of his patience. He has tried every single avenue. Even Lavrov is losing his patience. Lee Williams.
Will it be a case that if they take the peace deal, then would it happen the same as Israel? I mean, would it be a lying confrontation, as in they said they're peace?
There is no peace deal to be had anymore, Lee.
Exactly.
See, this is a problem. We've had lots and lots of geopolitical commentators turning around and saying, oh, we're going to have Istanbul, we're going to have Istanbul Plus. It has always been the thing of this channel. I think I'm right in saying, correct me if I'm wrong, we have always said that Russia, if they do not agree to the peace deal, Russia are going to take the 9 oblasts that they want. Okay? We have always said this, and I'm going to pop these up, and this is the minerals map here. So very, very simply, what are the 9 oblasts? Well, they're these here. First of all, that they're more or less sitting on all of these. So Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, and Luhansk. Then they will take Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, and they will take Mykolaiv, and obviously they already have Crimea. And you see these idiots going out, Crimea is Ukraine. No, it's not, because the Russians are sitting on it. So it's not Ukraine, is it? I can turn around and, say Gibraltar is England. It's not. Simple as that, because they're not sitting on it. Hong Kong is the UK. No, it isn't. The Chinese are sitting in there. People coming out with this sort of rhetoric are talking absolute nonsense. The Russians are sitting on it. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. So those are the 8 oblasts. You have Crimea, you have the 4 down the bottom, the 3 across the middle, and I'm going to show you some close maps in a short while to show you just how far and how bad this is going to get. And then Odessa, of course, which the French have just stationed loads and loads of troops and loads of equipment inside Odessa, because if it looks like Mykolaiv is going to fall, which it might well do to the Russians, and it looks like they're going to make a dash for Odessa, then the French are going to try and take over that port. That is something that will kick this war off for definite. Nilis, you wanted a word.
Yeah. As I said before, Larry Johnson a few days ago, he said he'd heard from the out of Russian high command. There was an order saying, turn off the lights of Ukraine. Is that campaign still going on?
Yes, it is. Yeah, they've been hitting it. Go on.
I think that's a very good indicator about how much Putin's lost his patience and the Russians have lost their patience. And because
Yes.
before they were very careful not to destroy Ukraine's utilities and resources.
Yeah, no, they're stepping it up now, and they're also smashing the railways, which is the reason why you saw all those trucks. Remember, we showed you the video, those 25 Ukrainian trucks all burning at crossroads. Because they can't deliver them by rail, they're now having to deliver them by road. And of course, there are drones and missiles waiting for them. Andrew Edge, Andy.
Yeah, I think Odessa might be a bit messy.
It will be the worst one to try and take.
I don't think Russia will be too concerned about having a bit of collateral damage in someone else's country if it goes over to that.
Yes, and
what are they going to do?
They played into their hands as well, Andrew, because Zelensky has just replaced the mayor of Odessa in the hope that he's going to make it more Ukrainian. 92% of people in Odessa want to be part of of Russia. So the people in Odessa.
Yeah, and the French are just going to get their asses kicked, aren't they?
They will do, because I'm telling you this now, and we're going to make a prediction here. If it does kick off in Odessa, and if the French go in, okay, the French will do everything that they can or whatever, but if it comes right to it, nobody is going to go in. Starmer's not going to go in. Macron's not going to go in. And literally, the Americans are not going to go in either. Remember this, the Americans do not need an escalation while the Russians are busy, while the Chinese are busy, and while they're overthrowing places like Nepal, Syria, and other places. They're getting their work done. They do not want an escalation to the point where they have to. There's no chance ever of them putting boots on the ground in Ukraine. And I'm going to tell you this right now, and I'll stick my hand up if ever they do. The Americans are not going to put boots on the ground in Ukraine. Are you crazy? Have you seen the amount of people? Have you seen the way people are dying? Their technology and everything else.
No, I totally agree with you. I totally agree.
Yeah.
You know,
sorry, I was saying that to the audience, not to you, Andrew.
Yeah, it's a It's going to be a distraction for them. They've got other fish to fry in the world, which they really want to get the teeth into, and Ukraine is not one of them.
Yeah, and Europe and the Ukrainians have been stupid enough to go along with it. Economies are in the toilet. Germany's economy. There were 22,000 businesses that have closed down in Germany just this year. 22,000. Okay, filed for bankruptcy. Some of them very big ones. That's the trouble, Andrew. You look at France. Their economy is in the toilet. Their leader is about as unpopular as a dose of herpes. Okay, Keir Starmer is the most unpopular prime minister Great Britain has ever had. Who are the popular guys? People like Orban, Vucic, the chap in charge of Georgia, because the Georgia Green Party, they're all really popular in their own lands. And you've actually got people like the Finnish MPs going over and protesting inside Georgia to try and get them overthrown. Can you believe that? Talk about election interference. Romania couldn't have their own elections because they were going to literally put a guy in that wouldn't agree with NATO and wouldn't build that huge air force that they're going to do.
Yeah.
And basically, it's Trump wants to go to meet Putin. He's going to go and do it. I'm being told by our friends that he's going to go and meet him in Budapest in Hungary, and that Orban's going to. But whether that comes about, I don't know. But that's the intel we're getting. Because and Zelensky is not. So if he's going to go and do that, which I'm thinking that he is, they're not going to give him tomahawks before that happens.
No. And it's like we said before, it's going to take a long time to get all this organised with the tomahawks.
Yeah. And he's not going to give him tomahawks. I mean, the reason the Americans are phoning Putin like mad is they want to get some sort of concession out of Putin. They're desperate to. Okay. And literally, it's going to be a case of, can I come and see you? Can I come and talk to you? Because he's got to give Zelensky something to keep the people right on his side of the fence, like your Lindsey Grahams and your Rubios and your Hegseth. So it's going to have to be a meeting. And I bet you over the next 24, 48 hours, Trump and Putin arrange a meeting. And from what I'm hearing from our sources in America, they want it to be Budapest. They don't want to travel to Moscow because that will look bad. So they're going to go to Budapest, to Hungary, which of course is going to set Zelensky off and set the West off again in terms of trying to ramp this up and screw everybody over. But Trump is now aware that they're drinking in the last chance saloon. So if there is a meeting, and I'm not saying there will be one, but from what we're being told, that they had already organised, that they were on the phone saying, you know, Orban said, we can come to Budapest, will you come and talk to us? After they've met with Zelensky. So whether that comes about, I don't know. But that's what I'm hearing from our friends in the State Department. And I don't think Putin will be averse to it. Putin won't be averse to it because he's going to put forward the same things. But Trump is looking for something to give Zelensky, Andy, and it's not coming. It's not happening.
No.
And literally, when the meeting does come about, from what I'm hearing from Peskov's best friend, is that the Russians are not going to budge at all whatsoever, and Trump can come over, and Putin is going to have a clear the air, clarify session, and it's going to be, this is where we are. So then it is up to United States to either stop making crazy statements and silly promises, or on we go. Putin's quite happy to carry on.
Yeah.
Putin's quite happy to carry on. But the rest of the Russians, even people like Lavrov, are starting to go, let's just cut ties with them because they're not serious about making peace. Because at the end of the day, Andrew, the Americans started this by overthrowing the democratically elected government, whether you liked it or not, but whether they got on. I mean, the guy in charge, he was, you know, he said yes to the Russians, yes to the Americans, yes to the. He sort of played it both sides of the fence, rather like Erdogan does, to get everything he can for his own people. Problem being that they went, right, you're not having the IMF bank loan. You're going to go with the cheap loan from the Russians and the cheap Russian gas. Bang, we're not having you in power anymore. So the National Endowment for Democracy, Victoria Nuland, and everybody else started, but as they're trying to do in Georgia and elsewhere, they start this color revolution. Then as you remember, in Georgia, we actually saw a film of guys saying, we've got to kill someone because until somebody dies, nobody's going to take this overthrow in Georgia seriously. That's exactly what they did in Ukraine. It's exactly what they did in Ukraine. We have shown you film of snipers going into the Hotel Ukraine with bags all blacked up. And the other day when the SBU director got shot and killed by an assassin, that was the guy who was directing those snipers in 2000.
Yeah, I remember that.
So it is one of those. But Lee Williams, let's hear from you. Lee?
Is it ever going to, is Trump or I say the USA ever going to be trusted? Because every time I say we're going to stop and then it happens that they start again. Never, no.
Would you?
No.
Would you trust? So let's put it this way. America have turned around on at least 3 occasions and turned around and said we'd like to talk. And then either Israel on behalf of America or America have fired at the people that they're supposed to be negotiating with. Are you going to trust anyone on that basis?
No. Most definitely.
Why would you? If the Russians and the Chinese, Putin actually likes Trump personally, and he understands that Trump is under pressure from all sorts of people in his own area. Putin is now under pressure. He's not under pressure, but there are people going, why are we bothering with these? We'll have Nillis, then Sean Murphy. Nillis.
Well, it's a bit like the ceasefire in Gaza, where Trump and Netanyahu are saying you haven't returned all hostages. Well, all the dead hostages are buried under tons of rubble.
What a surprise, Nillis,
They've got no machinery to take.
What a surprise, Nillis, that the Israelis would go, oh, you've broken the ceasefire, having broken it, having not even really done the ceasefire. They turn around and go, oh, they're breaking the ceasefire, all bets are off. But are you surprised that happened, Nillis?
Yeah. No, but it's just another case. And also Trump's doing the same thing. He's threatening Hamas now because they haven't returned all the dead hostages. And those hostages are buried.
It's always going to happen. No, nobody in their right mind, Nillis, believe this nonsense, ever. Right? Well, I've got peace in the Middle East. No, you haven't. No, you have. You never had it. It was all it was going to do was get all the Israeli hostages back, and then they were going to go again. That's it. Anybody believing that absolute, how can I put this, floating turd of a peace deal, where not remember that the ceasefire was only Gaza, it wasn't in the West Bank. Hello, Nicholas?
Well, technically there's no war in the West Bank, isn't there?
No,
Apart from the
technically, but they're
settlers.
still slaughtering people in the West Bank and clearing them out for settlers.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't.
They're still raiding there.
Nicholas, you don't send bulldozers. You don't send bulldozers in if you're going to give them that land back. I'm sorry. Oh, we'll just clean up for you after we've killed you.
Right, yeah. And they're probably putting the
Hello.
bull over some of the dead bodies.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah, that's all right, mate. Don't worry. Don't worry about all your relatives are dead. Let us just tidy up for you while we're here. Not happening. Sean Murphy.
Well, Warren, I think we've got the measure of what's going on, and there's only a handful of us that that comment in the show, and
Yes.
yourself, of course, and anybody else who comes on. Look at the vast intellect of the Russian government and Putin and people like Lavrov and all the people surrounding him. They have got the total measure of what's going on in America.
Yes.
And Putin is nobody's idiot. And Putin is not going to bow down to them.
Time's on Russia's side.
Especially as they're winning.
Yeah, time's on Russia's side. They know if the killing continues, eventually, at some point, and I'm saying August 2026, Ukraine start to run out of men. I'm going to show you something. I know you've seen it before, but other people may not have seen it. So when everybody was talking about the desperation in the Donbass, have a little look at this. Now, all these yellow areas, they're all trench lines. Okay, so as you can see up here, there's Kramatorsk up here, here's Konstantinivka, here's Dobrofilia, and here's Pokrovsk. Okay, now Pokrovsk and Konstantinivka is now getting shelled. They're going to go very, very simply. What they did was the Russians made a punch line, as you can see, past that trench line there, where the red arrows are. Now, that once they then got through there, if they didn't react, if the Ukrainians didn't react, they could then get in behind those trench lines, and suddenly you have this huge bubble between Kramatorsk, Dobrofilia, Konstantinivka, and Pokrovsk, this huge cauldron made. So they had to react. So they sent some of their best troops there. Now, they were losing 1,300 men a day. Now, the Russians once again did that thing where they punch through, Ukrainians go rushing in, Russians retreat. They're then filling those trenches which are out in the open, and they are getting slaughtered. Now, they cannot, once they get behind that, look how little trench lines there are behind in these areas. So very simply, what's going to happen is they're going to take Pokrovsk, and Minorab, which is around here. Konstantinivka is going to go. Then they're going to take Slavyansk, which is up here. And the very last city they go for to clear out the Donbass will be Kramatorsk. But once they're behind those trench lines, there is open space. There isn't a lot in the way. When you can compare to look, people go, oh, the Russians haven't gone anywhere. Look at all the trenches they're having to clear out on the way. Okay. Now you have some understanding. People in the West, 9 times out of 10, don't have an understanding of this and what's going to happen. So we're going to show you some of that trench line stuff. Now, you might not like, and you may turn around and go, oh, that's a bit awful. Let's have a look. This is some of the trench warfare. This, as you can see down the bottom left of the screen, is a Russian who's about to crawl into that trench, kill 3 Ukrainians, and take 2 of them prisoner. Now, it's not just showing this just because Ukrainians are dying. Ukrainians are dying at the rate of about 20 to every Russian. So if there were 20 Russians dying to every Ukrainian, we'd be showing the plight of them. All right. So park that nonsense and just watch. Now, very, very simply, you can turn around and go, oh, why are you showing us this and everything else? I'm showing you for the simple fact that there are good and decent Ukrainians being thrown onto the front line, beaten up and thrown into these trenches. You cannot, literally, if you look at this, you cannot turn around and go, it's not happening. This is happening at the moment in the trenches. Have a little look at this.
Уникальные кадры. ВСУшники под артиллерийским огнем идут к своему, как они думают, тыловому блиндажу. Оттуда их автоматным огнем в упор срезают наши разведчики. Двое падают, к ним на помощь бежит третий, но его настигает очередь. Четвертый оказался поумнее, он сбегает с тропинки и прячется в яме. Сидит там какое-то время, затем сбрасывает с себя тяжелый груз и налегке решается на штурм. Стреляя, подбегает к амбразуре, но падает раненый. Бросает гранату и просто убегает с поля боя, бросив своих раненых товарищей. Это его не спасет, он будет уничтожен чуть позже.
Когда один из противников все-таки вырвался из этого всего, он бросил все с себя, то есть он снял все, что на нем было, вот это вот модное американское, он решил побежать полями, мы не стали его уничтожать, мы дали ему спокойненько дойти до того места, где сидят его побратимы, изучили это место и огнем артиллерии наносили точечные удары, после чего, выкуривая противника, добивали его с помощью сбросов и дронов.
Но на этом все не закончилось. Вскоре после бегства четвертого ВСУшника к блиндажу подходит пятый. Он видит, что трое его побратимов лежат, истекая кровью, но все равно самоуверенно, словно под наркотиками, идет в лоб прямо на блиндаж и, конечно же, получает пулю в голову. За ним следует шестой, который все это видел. Тот решил бросить в амбразуру гранату, но она не долетает и падает рядом с его ранеными товарищами. Финал этого боя. Вся группа противника уничтожена и лежит перед блиндажом. Разведчикам помогли операторы БПЛА.
That's happening as we speak, okay, on the battlefield. Anybody who's been in a war, if you've been in a war, you know how god-awful it is. And that is far worse than anything we went through in the Falklands, far worse than anything that happened in Iraq or anywhere else. And we were talking to a mercenary soldier today, and we had a bit of a disagreement because I was saying to him, it looks the worst it could possibly be, and he said it was absolutely terrible. And then he was saying, "Oh, we've still got to fight for Ukraine." And I said, "Are you still believing that nonsense?" And he said, "Yes, we've got to do this, we've got to do that." I said, "Well, why aren't you out there then? Because as soon as the going got tough and Ukraine started losing, you've got your backside is back home. Okay, it's not out there with the mates that you say you think are the greatest people in the world. You left them, and you're now sitting in a bedsit in Bridlington, you know, in Yorkshire." So very, very simply, the problem that we have with this is the West are willing to come out with all this rhetoric, democracy, and all the rest of it. America are quite happy for Ukraine soldiers to go in the trenches and keep dying, and they will keep supplying them. Europe is happy to go bankrupt to keep the Americans happy, and that's exactly what is happening to our economies all around the world. We are buying weapons, get this, we are putting up the pension ages of these people in Germany, in France, in Britain, to get money, to give it to American arms dealers, to give those weapons to NATO, to then give them to Ukraine for a war they can't possibly win. How mad do you have to be? Andy Edge wanted a word. Andrew Edge.
Yeah, I suppose the supply lines are getting very, very, should we say, bad now. You know, things just ordinary ammunition, good for guns. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely that. Because when we look at all the maps and everything else, as we show you, very, very simply, those roads, the very first thing they do is cut them off. Here's Pokrovsk. Here's 42 of these Ukrainian soldiers, poor sods, in a barracks behind the main line in Pokrovsk. Have a look what happened to them. 2 days. "27 dead, the rest injured." Okay, that's people dying, just literally being thrown into the front line who haven't got a first chance in hell. This is just outside Minorab, which we showed you. Have a little look. Now, this is the bombing of Minorab. You can see the Fab 3000 bombs are landing there. If you are in that vicinity, you're over, okay? And we are funding a war that can't possibly be won unless you put full troops from NATO, everybody from NATO goes in. America, Germany, France, Great Britain. Sean Murphy, then Andrew Edge. Sean.
I'd be very surprised if they're even getting small arms ammunition up to the front anymore, Warren. Their supply lines are totally cut off, aren't they?
We've got a story on that in a while. Yeah, they are cutting off the supply lines because they're bombing the railways. So they're having to go by road. And when they do, the drones are waiting for them. So
exactly.
It's an absolutely, we showed you the video the other day, 25 just outside of Kramatorsk, 25 of those vehicles just completely blown up.
Yeah.
Andy Edge.
Yeah, this war is the first proper war with drones.
Yeah.
No other country has been in a drone under drone warfare.
No.
So
they haven't got the first idea of what they're doing.
Haven't a clue what it's going to be like.
Yep. So let's show you what that is like. Okay. This is drone warfare. Okay. This is people's lives ending for democracy, for a sovereign Ukraine. This isn't a sovereign Ukraine. This is a Ukraine that were talked into fighting a war that America wanted them to fight so that they could weaken Russia. And if you have a look here, here's your cage. Okay. This is why they're a death trap. This is why they've spent hundreds of millions erecting these cages. You can make a hole in there, and the next thing you know, everybody is exiting vehicles. And guess what? You can't go anywhere because you're encased with netting. That's all just from one area, okay? That's all just from one area. There are good Ukrainians dying for so-called democracy and all the rest of the nonsense that they're coming out with. And you literally, here's why you don't snipe from an abandoned house, why you always choose, shall we say, external cover rather than do it from houses if you can. If you're a decent sniper, you'll know what I mean. Okay, they bring the house down on your backside. Okay, really straightforward. If you want to try and survive a drone, I've spoken to mercs who are over there. The best way to survive a drone is when it flies overhead, you can hear it, you can see it. Don't panic, don't move, because the moment you move, They spot you. Okay. Some have thermal imaging and you can't get away. But your best way of surviving a drone is to use a cover blanket, which is basically to save yourself by using a blanket that blocks out your body heat. Okay. And they are available. You can get them. But of course, we're getting a bit too technical there. But it is really incredible. And of course, listen to this nonsense, please.
Is that they are saying if a plane would pose a threat, we have the authorities to do, if necessary, the ultimate. But if the plane is not posing a threat, we are not going to shoot it down. And then we will gently guide it outside the airspace. This is exactly what they should do. And I totally agree with that approach, because we are so strong.
Proportional response.
It's proportional response, exactly. And we are so much stronger than the Russians. We don't have to take down Russian airplanes because they enter our airspace. We do it if they enter our airspace and also pose a threat. If we were weak, you might maybe think, okay, we are weak, so we have to immediately show them that whenever they enter our airspace, we shoot them down. But if they don't pose a threat, being so much stronger than the Russians, I think it is much stronger that our reaction is as it is, proportionate, and of course making clear to the Russians that we are not too happy.
So stronger, much stronger than Russia, but just leaving the Ukrainians to die. Really, honestly. So you're either complicit in helping the Ukrainians get slaughtered on their land, okay, what they call their own land, and yet you get all these people talking about democracy and how we can shoot these planes down. Well, go ahead and do it. This is the idiot who is in charge of the defense of the West, Sean Murphy.
Well, he's got absolutely no idea whatsoever. He's got no idea what he's actually talking about. And as for being stronger than the Russians, he's got that totally wrong as well.
It is quite incredible.
Got it totally wrong.
Yeah.
They're not stronger than the Russians. They haven't really got any great defence now because they've given it all to the Ukrainians.
yeah.
It's all been destroyed.
Sean, if they had the weapons, they'd have handed them over. They've handed over everything. They've handed over Challenger tanks. They've handed over Bradleys. They've handed over, the artillery guns, the Leopards, the Marders. They've given everything they've got. They've given the F-60. It is just, all this is complete nonsense for the ignorant, as Vic has just turned around and said there. Okay, this is what they will term it. This is basically the truth. When you hear this nonsense of democracy, it's not a democracy. Ukraine isn't a democracy. Ukraine will do exactly. Donald Trump actually turned around and said, Ukraine want to go on the offensive. Have a look at this, because this is important.
We'll be talking about the war with him, and we'll be talking about, I mean, they want to go offensive. I'll make a determination on that, but they would like to go offensive, you know that, and we'll have to make a determination.
So I will make a determination on that. I hope you heard that clearly. America will decide whether Ukraine can go on the offensive with the Tomahawk weapons. Ukraine don't get to decide. Sean Murphy.
They can't go on the offensive because they haven't got the capability to go on the offensive, Warren.
Not anymore. Not anymore. And this is what I keep saying to people. They are not meant to win this war. All these people out there, okay? And if you are one of them out there, you know, you can turn around and call me a Putin apologist. You can go, I'm not a Putin apologist. I don't want Ukrainians to die. They're dying because they believed America, they believed Biden, they believed Boris Johnson, when they said, don't have a peace deal with Russia. And of course, people go, oh, yeah, but it was a peace deal where they'd have to give away some land, where they'd have to let Luhansk and Donetsk have their own republics. Yes. Do you know why the Russians insisted on that? Because since 2014, these lunatic neo-Nazis were killing people in the Donbass and in Luhansk and Donetsk and bombing their families for 8 years. Did you really think you were going to be able to do this to ethnic Russians and get away with it? This is not Gaza, okay? It's not where everybody's thinking, oh, it's another Israel where they can go in and do whatever they like in Gaza and there'll be no repercussions. Nonsense. There were repercussions. Russia told them there was a red line. They told them in 2004. They told them in 2002, 2008, when you had the Minsk, Budapest and everything else. And everybody, oh, Russians, but no, they didn't. They didn't break it. And if you actually speak to any of the Russians, you will see and you can hear from Angela Merkel and from Mitterrand that they turned around and that they said the only reason we agreed to the Minsk agreements was to give time to arm Ukraine. Yeah, and you've heard Lindsey Graham, 2017, in a video on this channel, turning around and saying, look, we're going to go and do this. We're 2017. This is going to be the year of the offense. Okay? This is Dnipro. The Russians can fire 20 of those for every one that the Ukrainians fire. They've got better weapons, they're longer range, they've got more men, and they can literally keep going and keep going. Why are more Ukrainians dying? Why am I showing videos of Ukrainians dying? Because nobody is believing the casualty figures that we know from people who are there, okay? And they are losing men like there's no tomorrow. And when you lose good men, which they lost in the Battle of Bakhmut, they're trying to hold on to that stupidly. They lost a lot of good men, the Ukrainians there. And when you stick people on the front line who are not as experienced, your casualty numbers are going to go up. It is complete nonsense. And this guy is in charge saying NATO is stronger and this, that, and the other. So if NATO is stronger, can you tell me why there are no troops in there? If they're much, much stronger than Russia, can you tell me why they're not in there? This is Kharkiv. This is a transport. They are able to pick them off at will. They have control of the skies. Kharkiv is the second biggest place. And then you have, of course, the nonsense that they keep coming out with and what they are trying to do. And this, course, this is in Izium, okay? This is well past the front line. This is well behind the front line. This is a group, a truck, a transport truck with ammunition in, going to the front line, which is in Izium, which is well behind the front line. The Russians found it, targeted it. Okay, going to show you that again. Look how many petrol stations. Look, there's a petrol station there. There are shops. There are people going by in their ordinary everyday cars. Okay. When you start moving your military into civilian areas and driving into civilian areas, you put them at risk. You do that as a soldier. Gordon.
I just want to give you some. Trump has just posted on his Truth Network that he is meeting Putin and is in Budapest.
It is in Budapest.
Yes, and he's that's on Truth Social right now on his page.
Can I just say to our chaps on the Hill who are quite close to the White House, thank you very much for the heads up. Here we go. Thank you very much, Gordon. Andy,
no problem. I've just posted that in the chat.
Ah, excellent. Excellent. Thank you very much.
That's from Sky News.
Oh, well, there's good news. Sorry, I hadn't seen it because I was so busy. Says he met. Yeah, Sky News says he and Putin agreed to meet high-level advisors led on the US side by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Oh, That's not good. President Putin and I will then, let me have a look here. President Putin and I will then what? Meet? We have to, yeah, I think they have to look, to meet to see if we can bring this war to an end. Okay. In an agreed upon location, Budapest, Hungary, see if we can bring this war to an end. Yeah, the Russians are going to have the same position. But thank you very much, by the way, our sources on the Hill who told us well before the announcement. Thank you very much. And as always, they are spot on with the stuff that we get from America is absolutely first class. Rubio, you're absolutely, Vic said that Rubio is a deep state plant. Rubio is absolutely terrible. If Rubio gets into the White House, you've all got a problem. It will be as bad as letting this lunatic, Kakakalis, into the White House.
The military needs that Ukraine has, I mean, Ukraine knows the best, whether it's Patriots, whether it's Tomahawks, whether it's all the capabilities you can mention. So it is not up to us to say, but Ukraine to say what they really need. What we are trying to do is help Ukraine with this needs. And that's why we are discussing also different initiatives, how we can help Ukraine. When it comes to the frozen assets, then this reparations loan that is based on the frozen assets and based on the idea that Russia owes Ukraine for the damages that it has caused here, then it should be up to Ukraine to decide also for what.
There we go. So the frozen assets that they've already pinched and spent most of it, they're going to steal Russia's money and give it to Ukraine for the damage Russia, of course. Okay, then. This is a woman who is head of the European Commission, so she's right at the very top of the tree, along with Marco Rubio. These are the people that have decided that keeping on fighting Russia, even though it's a completely lost cause, and 2 million Ukrainians are dead, they're going to keep going. These are the lunatics in charge of your lives in the European Union. Nilus, and then we'll have Louis Bastos. Nilus.
Yeah, somebody pointed out yesterday that you don't see Kalakalis or Rubio saying to Israel, you should pay for the rebuilding of Gaza. And Rubio's a bit like Trump's second Pompeo. Trump was asked why he kept Pompeo in position. He said because people are scared of him. But I think Rubio is even worse.
Sorry, my mic was off there. That is Poltava, by the way, their energy system going up in smoke, as you can see. And of course, as everybody's mentioned in the chat, very, very knowledgeable people we have in the chat as well, that very simply, they are going right after the energy system and the rail system. The Russians are actually ramping this up. Louis Bastos.
I've got a friend, a Russian restaurant in Estonia, and I communicate with him, and he said today that it's still, even though it's a Russian restaurant with Russian food, it's still the most popular restaurant there in Estonia. So yes. I don't know what they're going about.
Yeah,
crazy.
You're absolutely right, Nilus.
And the Estonians are expelling many Russians if they can't pass the Estonian language test, aren't they?
Yes, yeah, quite crazy, isn't it? And of course, they're going to keep doing it. They're going to keep doing it. There's a couple of things that we need to talk about as well on top of this, and it is quite troubling, quite worrying, and we're going to show you something in a second, which is quite bad, I think. There are lots of times when we have war crimes. Now, we are literally going to end the first part of the show here because we're about to show you images that we cannot show you online, because if this goes on YouTube, they will take it down immediately. So I just want to say a huge thank you to all the people who watch the show. There is more to come on X. If you're on X, stay on the air. But this is literally the end of the show. As regards the people who watched the first hour, have a little look at this. There we go. Let's play that again. Sorry. We can always cut that bit in the edit at the end of the show. But if you're watching live, these things sometimes happen.